What about the arguments you've made or believe makes your denomination superior in the true sense of the word superior? Are you saying that it's because you're right, you're correct, or is there something about your belief that inherently better serves the people and God?
Just to be very clear, the Anglican Catholic position, and by extension the Methodist position, because Methodists are Anglicans, is that the Methodist Church, the Anglican Church, all of them, they're not the superior one true church. They are a group of Christians in their genuine best effort attempting to follow Christ in the most proper way possible, using the 7 ecumenical councils, using the 7 sacraments. We are Catholic up until the end of the 11th century.
Why? So, what happened then?
We began to disagree with the Pope. It's a long process. The Reformation did not happen in 1517.
In the 11th century, a Pope came in who was saying stuff that was like way wrong.
I would argue it started with Gregory VII, probably, with the Dictatus Papae and him coming out, and because of a literal political situation. This was not a theological issue. This is a political issue.
I have a question for you. You're an Anglican, then do you agree with the branch theory?
Anglican Catholic. I don't
agree with the branch theory.
Can you elaborate on the branch theory?
It's the typical Anglican idea that the church is split amongst a bunch of different branches.
I think that would probably line up.
Do you think that any of the people who composed the documents and the canons at the 7 ecumenical councils believe that the church was divided amongst a bunch of different sects?
I don't. I mean,
he's Orthodox now.
Could you name anybody that believed that about the nature of the church?
I don't know that I would agree that it was necessarily divided into several sects, and I don't know that my church would agree with that either. I think.
Well, don't you agree with the idea that Protestants are trying their best, and whether they're Methodist or whether they're Anglican doesn't really matter?
No, I would say that there are Protestant sects that are more properly
Is the church
Christian
divided
than
amongst
others.
those branches?
Today, yes.
Okay. Did anyone in those 7 councils have that idea about the nature of the church?
No, but I also don't think that.
So your church is not in communion with those ideas of the 7.
My church is not in communion with the Anglican Communion. We're not Anglicans. We're Anglican Catholics. We hold ourselves.
I'm asking you about the first 1,000 years of Christianity.
Yes,
but you have
we are in agreement with all 7 ecumenical councils.
No, you're not, because you couldn't name anybody that had your ecclesiology at those.
I don't think we're having the same. I don't think we're having the same conversation.
Well, maybe you should get on this conversation and answer the question, because that's what we're doing here today.
The terminology you're using is confusing to me.
It's common.
Yeah,
it's
no,
natural. The ecclesiology that the people the first 1,000 years had.
Yeah.
Did any one of them have a branch theory, or that the church is divided amongst a bunch of groups?
Again, I don't think we're having the same conversation.
So
I think we got off base at a certain point here.
Does your ecclesiology have any basis in the first 1,000 years?
Yes, we trace all of our ecclesiology back to the first 1,000 years.
Name a church father or a council that has your branch theory view of the church.
I think branch theory is where we're having a disagreement here. I've
Whatever
never
you
heard
want to call
that term
it.
before.
It's a classic Anglican term for the nature of the church. That's how they justified their Reformation position. So tell me one church father or council that has that position about the church. It's a very simple question.
I off the top of my head,
so it's ahistorical. That's
off the top of my head, I can't give you an answer to the question.
What Jay's asking him for people out there listening about ahistorical. When a Protestant claims that I'm with the church, I was with the church the same way that the Orthodox were until 1054. Set aside who excommunicated whom for a second. They might agree in abstracto, which is why I called it abstract Enlightenment rationalism. They might agree in abstracto with what was going on, with the Orthodox or with the Catholics. They're always going to favor the Orthodox because none of these groups like the Pope or the unity required by a papacy. But what Jay was asking here is, for it to be true Christianity, true Christianity in its truest sense, it's got to be one holy Catholic and apostolic. There's a problem for the one mark and the Catholic mark for Orthodox, but Orthodox are actually Christian insofar as they have the 7 sacraments, and all of their bishops can be traced back to one of the apostles. That's what he was asking about ecclesiology. So when they say, I agree with this, but no Protestant has the 7 sacraments or a bishop.
We have the 7 sacraments and we have bishops.
I'm gonna get very reductive and simplify everything to a ridiculous degree and ask questions that maybe are ridiculously rudimentary for the average Christian. do you guys all like when it comes to like Mosaic law, laws of Leviticus? Do you all follow those, or are they considered archaic? How does the Old Testament play a role in how you live your lives and what rules you follow?
We're under the new covenant.
So what does that mean? I just don't know. Like the New Testament, so the laws of Leviticus don't apply? Or?
Yeah, the laws of Leviticus are specifically made for a very specific period in Jewish history. And Jesus does not come to erase the law. He comes to fulfill the law. So his position in the hierarchy is not as somebody who washes things away. It's somebody who fulfills it. The law was basically a series of things that Jews had to do to stay in communion with God. Christ gives us a different set of rules. That doesn't mean we ignore everything, but it means we take his authority over the old law.
So does that mean that when it comes to all of the Old Testament's rules, are there some that remain based on Jesus said outright, these are still to remain and these are not to remain? Sure. How do you, and this is not a question, how do you know which, I don't imagine that Jesus addressed literally every single rule or law. How do you know which ones to follow?
Probably, well, one way we disagree with him is to a degree, not totally, but I mean, Orthodox and Catholics agree that there is an oral tradition that's passed down from the apostles. So you have what's the written text of the New Testament, which the early church didn't have a Bible. They had some documents, they had some letters, and they had tradition, and they had the church service. So everything was kind of done in a liturgical service way. You would be getting catechized orally, and then eventually the Bible gets collected in later centuries to be the canon. But so basically tradition and the Bible lets you know what things carry over and what don't. And that's one of the reasons why the councils have church law. So church law kind of helps interpret that.
So I have a question. I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but how do you all view Hutterites? Is it the word?
Oh, you mean Anabaptists? Yeah.
How do you all view them? Are they
We would say they're heterodox, yeah.
They're outside of the... Yeah. And I think you guys would all agree. It's like it's a different...
Amish,
Yeah.
So this is going to be a kindergartner level, urban liberals argument for the Christians right now when I say this, but is it not one of the instructions of God to be fruitful and multiply?
Yes.
Sure.
So we're having a conversation over what is the superior denomination. Well, I just looked it up. I don't think Mormons count. No offense to Mormons, but I think for the purpose of this debate, Mormons are a different area, right?
Mormons are non-Trinitarian. They don't believe in the same God that we do.
Pentecostals have a 2.1 fertility rate, and Hutterites have 6 to 7 fertility rate.
Jeez.
After that, conservative Protestants 1.8, Catholics 1.9, Orthodox 1.9, Jehovah's Witness slightly less than 2, Protestants 1.5 to 1.6, liberal Protestants 1.5, and unaffiliated Christians 1.3 to 1.8. So the Pentecostals and Hutterites, according to just a cursory search, are the only actual groups that are being fruitful and multiplying. And that's, to be honest, only the Hutterites, the Amish, Anabaptists. Everybody else ain't having kids.
I think traditional Catholics are having kids.
Just a cursory search, it is around 1.92. I thought it was a little higher than that.
There's not much of a difference between our three sects.
Y'all ain't having kids.
Well, if you
Y'all
go,
are supposed to be
if you go
fruitful
to
and
the,
multiply.
if
What are
you
you
go
doing?
to the Tridentine Latin Mass, it's a very different group. And
I'm going to ask ChatGPT this.
You know, it's going to be above replacement.
I do really quickly, while he's doing that, I want to come back because I had an opportunity to sit down and think about the branch theory thing. Do you not have a Russian Orthodox, a Greek Orthodox, an Orthodox Church in America?
Those are not branches. It's not at all the same ecclesiology of Anglican branch theory.
Well, first of all, I would point out that branch theory is not dogmatic. But
I was just looking for whatever was.
I know, but the Anglican position is that we were part of the one true Holy Apostolic Catholic Church, and then
now you're not.
And then that church.
What's dogma in your church? How do you determine it?
The same way that Catholics and Orthodox do.
No, that's very different.
But we don't have. We no longer have a pope, but we have councils of bishops.
So how do you determine the dogma?
We have councils of bishops.
Okay, but what's a dogma? Like, do you accept icons?
No. Well, yes, we were not iconoclasts.
Well, but is it a dogma or is it an opinion? Because
we hold the same position as the Roman Catholic Church.
No, you don't,
yes.
Because Orthodox and Roman Catholics excommunicate people that don't believe in imagery, and most Protestants historically have allowed it to be something that's an opinion. Adiaphora.
There is a lot of pious opinion in.
So is it a dogma or not? That's the question.
I'm not sure exactly with
Okay,
icons.
so,
I don't believe that
so
we
a lot of the
I don't believe we
basics-
excommunicate people for thinking that
Right.
icons
So
are
it's
bad.
not a dogma, and thus many of the basics are not actually settled in your
If
position.
it depends on if we're in again, I'm not as well versed on the specifics of the councils, but if it's in the first 7 councils, we're in the same we're of the same opinion.
But the problem with your ecclesiology is that when there are no leaders, right? I mean,
We have bishops, we have archbishops. I don't know why we keep coming back
bishops
to this.
that can trace their lineage
Yes,
all the
we
way
do.
back to one.
We
of
can
the
trace
12
back
apostles.
to
That's not
Augustine
true.
of Britain, and we can trace back to
Literally,
Aristobulus.
Orthodox and Roman Catholics.
Our bishops trace back to the 1st century AD in Britain.
Okay, but that's a
If
broken.
you have a
lineage.
totally different,
According to your
if you have a totally different,
No, it's not a broken lineage. The church remained in Britain even after the Saxons got there.
You're identifying as an Anglican Catholic today?
Yes.
Or you're identifying as a Methodist?
I'm identifying as a
Or as
Methodist
one.
who is inquiring into the Anglican Catholic Church
All
and
right,
is getting
so you
confirmed
got-
later this year.
I mean, this is part of the problem. No, that's good.
No, right now we're having a
that's
historical
a step in the
discussion.
right-
I
that is
am
the
a historian, but we're having a conversation about history right now. So your church recognizes Aristobulus of Britain. Your church recognizes Aristobulus.
you're a
of Britain.
historian, but you didn't know about the branch theory, which is like the number one.
I'm not a religious
Aryan theory.
historian. I'm a historian. I'm a medieval historian specifically. So when we're looking at this, Aristobulus is the earliest we can go back with the Anglican Catholic Church because of the
That just
union
is-
between the churches in Kent and
You're
the churches
assuming
in
your
Scotia.
ecclesiology.
No, I'm not.
You are.
No, that's fair. It's just you're
You
not.
both
You're not
acknowledge
You're
this.
not a
No,
faithful
we don't.
representative of.
You
pro-
both
we
of your
don't.
churches acknowledge
No,
Aristobulus.
we don't. We don't acknowledge your ecclesiology. You understand that from the Orthodox perspective, it doesn't matter if you have a laying on of hands.
Is
all the way back.
Augustine legitimate?
If you leave the faith of the church, none of that from the Orthodox perspective even
We
matters.
didn't leave the faith of the church. The Roman Catholic
I'm
Church left
saying
us.
from our
That's our position.
I know your position. I'm saying from our position, our ecclesiology doesn't recognize your ecclesiology, nor does his. They think that Anglican orders are invalid via Leo the 13th.
That's because that's what's convenient to their theology. It doesn't actually have any sort of
I'm
basis
saying
in
that
reality.
neither of us recognizes your lineage, and I understand that you think that it's there, but that's why I was
It is
asking.
there. We
That's
can
why
trace it all the way back to
only on the basis of your ecclesiology and presupposing the Protestant lineage.
We have an ordination that goes back
on
to
the
Augustine.
basis of your ecclesiology.
Do you understand? People out there need to understand that there is such a thing as apostolic sacramental Christianity. The Roman Catholic Church has, Ratzinger wrote on this in 2004 and in the 90s as well. We acknowledge that you can call the Orthodox churches with a capital C. They have bishops. They go back to apostles. They have 7 sacraments represented, acknowledged by the church. They're valid sacraments. You wouldn't be licit for a Catholic to receive there, or vice versa. But there is a shared ecclesiology. What people don't understand and need to about Protestantism, Anglican Catholics are slightly different. They're an exception to the rule. But of all the sects of Protestantism, they don't share any ecclesiology with us. So they'll say, oh, this is a dogma. What's a dogma? This isn't something that traces back to the Acta Apostolic Ascetis. It's not something that the bishops always and everywhere taught together as a church. So we have to just say this. It's not to be exclusive, but Protestantism is a lay bastardization of the religion. You guys believe in a Trinitarian, you have a Trinitarian baptism in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So it is technically Christian, but except beyond that, and baptism, even in Roman Catholicism, can be done by a layman, which is what makes it valid. But other than that, Protestantism is an abstract idea. Yeah, I like the idea
is an
of
abstract
Jesus.
idea.
I like this book that the Roman Catholic Church.
So it's not the same
canonized.
ecclesiology. Thank you.
No,
It's not a
you're talking
religion.
about Protestantism. That is a big tent.
You're part of that domain.
Yes, but the Anglican Protestantism is very different from the Lutheran Protestantism, which is very different from the Reformed
Which was
Protestantism.
my original point, right? There's not actually any clear unity there. It's all over the place.
No Protestant is going to tell you that there is Protestant unity.
Thank you.
They're going to tell you,
That disproves Protestantism.
no,
Exactly.
it doesn't.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.